Aleph, and we are in the middle of a discussion. When you pay someone for the use of their object, are you paying for the pleasure that I derive from it, or for the loss that I'm causing them to have? And we said, what about the case of where I have benefit but you have no loss? There was a discussion that was asked, and it seems that the consensus is that you are you are pater. I told you that one of the reasons I was trying to give is because that's called midas daim. If you're going to charge for it, it doesn't cost anything anyway. Let someone else have some pleasure. So we're up to the Gemara here. That was the last discussion. They asked Rav Huna, he passed away, so his son Rabba responded on behalf of his father that you don't have to pay. So 6 lines on top of the page, and then he continued saying something else that his father said. So one thing his father said was that you don't have to pay. The guy would not have rented out the house anyway. You don't have to pay. But then he said, if you rent a house from Reuven, you're renting a house from Reuven, the rent you got to pay to Shimon. What does that mean? Shimon, my ability. What is Shimon? If I rented the house from Reuben, why am I paying rent to Shimon? This is what I'm meant to say. Nimsa habaye shel Shimon. I thought I was renting from Reuben. Turned out to be that actually the real owner was Shimon. So now I got to pay Shimon. Without Shimon's knowledge, Reuben was pretended to be the owner. Turned out to be that it was Shimon, so I have to pay Shimon, which means that Shimon had no idea that I was in the house, and yet I have to pay him. So the question is, Tarti, you just contradict yourself. First you said, if you had no idea, I don't have to pay you. And then you tell me a Maisa that Shimon owns the house, had no idea that this person was moving into the house. You have to pay Shimon. Tarti, how do you have 2 rules that contradict each other? So you want to answer the obvious answer. Oh, the Kaimal Agra. Here we're talking about a case where Shimon would have laced out to somebody else, and therefore you cause them a loss. Zenene v'zechasa. There you have to pay. Oh, in the first case, like Kaimal Agra, it was a partner that had no intention of renting, so he had no loss. Itmanam, we actually similar. I'm going to he said the same 2 rules. If I live in somebody's chutz without their knowledge, ain't I don't have to pay him because it's loy chasa. The guy anyway had no interest in doing anything with that particular house. Then he said, if you're renting a house from the city owns houses, you have to pay to the owners. What owners? Where do the owners come in? You're renting it from the city. Something turned out to be that these weren't Hefker houses. They actually belonged to a private person. You have to pay them, even though they had no idea that you were in their house. It's a contradiction. If the house is meant to be rented out, cause them a loss, you got to pay. If it wasn't, then you don't have to pay. If I live in somebody's courtyard without their knowledge, you don't have to actually pay them any rent. Now, till now we learned you are potter, and we gave a reason because midas daim, and now the Gemara gives like another reason, and there's a question whether this is just adding to the reason or this is a different reason. From Shenema, there's a passage where it says that She'iya Yukashar, she is actually the name of a demon, Yukashar, that if the house is empty, he breaks through the front gate. Now, the house deteriorates very quickly if there's nobody in the house. So therefore, he's actually benefiting the owner by dwelling in the house. That's why you don't have to pay. I actually saw that demon, that shade. It was vicious and angry, and it gored it was very vicious, like a big animal, a cow, and therefore an ox. And therefore, you're benefiting by you being there. That the shed doesn't appear in that house. Or if not just shed, other things, the house deteriorates over time. Rabbi Yisrael says, a house that is settled, the house itself doesn't age so quickly. In other words, because you're there, you know what needs repairs. So you fix it straight away. You nip it as bud before the problem becomes a leak. You fix a leak straight away. You don't wait till it becomes a massive, torrent. Yes, my benai was different, which reason it is. No, what you're saying is a benefit to the owner by being in the house. So it's different than what we said before. We said the guy doesn't lose anything. You should be able to stay there. Well, why be such a bad person? Now we're saying you're actually benefiting from him being there. So is this Gemara here arguing on the previous Gemara? In other words, only where you benefit, but where you don't benefit, even though the guy is not losing out, maybe you have to pay? Or do we say, no, Gemara is giving an additional reason? Not clear from the Gemara. What's in between these 2 reasons? Whether it's a shade, a demon, or whether the reason is because, what do you call it? you can see what repairs. What happens? You're in a house where it's mainly used for wood or for storing things. So it's a warehouse. You moved in, you're squatting in a warehouse. So if you're worried about the shed, we're not worried at all because the shed, the summer's there. It won't bother anybody. But on the other hand, regarding the repairs you need for a house, no, it's not a house. It's just a warehouse, a basic shed. And therefore, you're not really benefiting. So sorry, just having around. If you worry about shadim, you're not benefiting at all because there's no shadim hanging around there. But on the other hand, if you're here, if you're no, when do the shadim come in a house where people normally live and it's empty? The shadim come and they do their thing. But in a warehouse, it's only storing wood. The shadim don't hang around. Mashain Kane, if the reason is that you see problems in the house, even in the warehouse, sorry, you do see them. Others were aware, I just told you before, but it's not actually. You do see the problems in the warehouse, a leak in the roof or something, so you can fix it straight away. So you are benefiting. So in one case you're benefiting, in one case you're not benefiting. Talking about just to finish off the sugya, the Gemara says, "Who gave the person the bana padna killed to the asma?" The same owned a little like a garbage dump, a little heap. There's nothing being done there really, and this guy just builds up a palace there. He says, "Zen and you have nothing to lose. What do you use it for? It's nothing." So what happened was, the Rab Nachman said to the people build a palace, you got to pay money to the assignment. If I move into your premises without you have no benefit from it. You have nothing to lose. So I have to pay you because I'm benefiting. Simba says no. Who me no have a die debate. There's a nation called Kamanoy. They used to live in that. They paid a few cents to be able to use that particular area. They used to pay something to the assignment. So now that you're actually chasser, you're actually causing them a loss. And there's an interesting discussion when you say that you have to pay for the loss. Once you're paying, do you pay the amount of the loss or do you pay the amount of your benefit? How much do you actually pay? Because the benefit might be much more than the loss that they would have had by me being there. So what do I pay? Machlek was showing yesterday. When you pay, you pay for the wall. We say you pay for all the other walls. You pay, full price of the walls, or what you would have done if you would have been only a cheaper wall. He says, he told you better go ahead and appease the Yisraelim and somehow or another come to negotiate something. They ignored him. Nachman, who was a very strong Av Bezin, because his father-in-law was the Reish Galusa, and we find often the Gemara and about other places that Nachman went ahead and he told him listen, he went and he seized the property, or he made sure that he implemented his rules. Second one further, the Mishnah says we said that if you're a shein in the Shus Rabim, you are potter, you don't pay for the damages, but you still pay for the benefit. We just had an argument yesterday, how much benefit, just because he doesn't have to have a meal. So just what you would have given normally a meal or whatever the thing that you ate, but the animal ate, the cheapest variety of that, 2/3 of the full price. So Amar Rav says, so we said in the Mishnah over here that if the animal was walking the animal's walking in the Shus Rabim in the street, you pay only with the hana, because in the street you are potter from mazikim, but you pay for the hana. But if you from the side street, the Mishnah says, then in the side street already you pay for the damage. It's not just hana because it's not a Shus Rabim anymore. Where is the animal itself parked? The food is in the side street, so you say that you have to pay for the damage. But where's the animal itself? So Rav says, the animal could be in the main street. He turns his head around sideways and he eats from the side street. We don't care where the animal is. What we care about is the food. And therefore, you pay full nezik. Shmuel says, no, if the animal is located in the Shus Rabim, even if it turns his head, it's still considered like eating in the Shus Rabim, and therefore you are exonerated. Says he might have sold Shmuel, so what's the Mishnah say when you eat from a side street, the animal is chayiv? And so you're going to shavakta that, for example, the animal left the main street. Well, the animal itself moved into the side street as well, where the food was. So therefore, that's why you pay full nezik. But not of the animal standing in the Shus Rabim. Others say that in fact they weren't commenting on the Mishnah; they were just having an argument. If the animal was in the Shus Rabim, turns his head around. The food is in a sort of side street, sort of private. Therefore, it's the animal is liable now for shen. And Shmuel says because the animal is still situated in the Shus Rabim, and it's common for the animal to turn around. Ulishmul Mishalem is Masha Zika Hechmeshkachlo. So when the Shmuel say that you ever have to pay the full damages, then Mechayiv going to Shavka L'Chava, the Oslo comes to L'Chava. If it left the animal itself went into the side street, then you pay the full damage. Moshe Rav Nachman Yitzchak has a question. It says further in the Mishnah if you're in the opening of the store or inside the store itself. The opening of the we said here that if it's in the opening of the store, you pay for the hana because like a shus rabim, but inside the store you pay for the damage. It says the Gemara. Moshe Rav Nachman Yitzchak has a question. Pesach hachanus mishalemes mashanenis. If you're now the opening of the door is not very wide, so the opening of the door is like a shus rabim. Now, according to Heichem Mishkachas law, how do it's still considered a shus rabim, right? It's still considered rabim, and the din is that you are potter. So the question is, what exactly is it talking about over here? So the only way possible is the animal turn his head around. There's not enough room there for the animal to be inside thing. So it must be that the animal is standing in the shus rabim, turn his head around, and we treat it like a shus rabim. And what do you pay? Only the amount of that pleasure, which means we treat it like a shus rabim. In other words, we look at where the animal is standing. If the animal is shus rabim, like Shmuel. Mashanenis in Mashazikuloi. But with the damage, we don't look at what damage. Rav said that we don't care where the animal is. All we care about is where the food. The Mishnah clearly says that the food is inside the store, right at the doorway. But since the animal finds itself in the shus rabim, we treat it like a shus rabim. Kasha Rav. He asked the answer. The kaima bekedin zav is talking about a case. If you look in the picture here, the diagram in Rashi, that you have a big street wide, and then it narrows down, and you have to go from the wide into the narrow, and on the corner, the very corner, there is the store. So the animal is sort of going through this, since it's on the corner. So the animal is really going through the entrance of the store to get to the street. So the animal itself is inside the entrance of the store. So the animal is not in the Rishus Rabim. You cut open the store. The store is on the corner here, and there's like an opening right over here to get in. But the animal people, when they walk from the main street to Main Street, a lot of them go right through that opening. They're actually walking on the store property.
Like you see now, they have stores that put out a stand on the street that you can walk in the footpath. You have on one side of the store, and the other side is the stand full of soda.
So that's
It looks like you're projecting out into the street.
We actually had that on Shabbos there. We had when they put out their tables with all their wares. How do we treat that in between? But if you look over here, it's like on the corner over here, and the only way to get to from the main street to the narrow main street is by walking through the store itself. Oh.
Your shop is much smaller than mine. Makes sense. My shop goes up.
No, it's like a cut over here. This picture's not accurate. It's like there's a cut over here, and when the animal goes through, go together, it's walking through. That's one answer, Gemara. Others say no. Others say a different version of the argument Rabbi Shmuel. Machzed is turning the head around. Surely you're chayiv because you look at the food. The food isn't a private thing. You're chayiv. I don't care where the animal is. On private property, this person decided, you know what? The corner of my property, I'm going to give access way to the public because we have a big machlekes regarding a boir. A boir, if you build a pit, some kind of a stumbling block in the middle of Rishus Rabim, that's if a person builds a boir. But if you build it in your private property, and then you make your private property open to the public, but you're retaining ownership of the boir. How do we view that as far as boir is concerned? Is that considered a boir b'shus rabim, or not really? Because it's still private property. So what happened was you set aside a designated part of your private property, opened it up to the shus rabim, and you left your fruits over there on the space that you left for yourself. All around it is shus rabim. And so your fruits, if it's the middle of shus rabim and people stumble over it, it's a boir. If you put a stumbling block. But how do we view it here? Because it was originally your private property, and you left that part to be your private property, just all around the shus rabim. You made it shus rabim. Rav here said, when do we say that you are what do you call it? Oh, when do we all agree if the food is in a private property, you're chayiv, I don't care where you're standing when the animal turns the head around. But if in this case, I hope to this. Mama's like a Rishus Rabbim because you open up, gave access way for everyone to walk by there. It's like a Rishus Rabbim and you potter. Shmuel says, I feel even in this case, Chayevis, it's Chayiv, it's not really considered Rishus Rabbim because originally it was your private property and therefore he's Chayiv. Layman, let us say that they're arguing the Shusai Kamifli. They're arguing if you build a boiler inside a boiler, arguing if you dug a boiler inside your Rishus and then you made Hefker your Rishus, but you did not make Hefker the boiler itself, like the fruits over here. You kept the fruits are still yours. You did not make Hefker the boiler. How do we deal with that? Is that considered boiler Shus Rabbim or not? Machlekes Tanoim, and that's a Machlekes there. Rav Dama Patik Salabah Shus Chayiv. He said, "Boy, you Shus Chayiv. Why? Because you open up for everybody else. So therefore, you shouldn't have placed the boy. You shouldn't have left the boy there, and therefore you're responsible." And Shmuel says Chayiv. Shmuel says you are. Shmuel that says Chayiv because it's considered like a private property. He holds boy Shus a potter. He holds you a potter if it's still in your Shus because it's not really public. It's still your potter. So now the Gemara lav dafka. I can tell you about, but generally speaking, boy Rishus potter. Maybe a boy is potter. So how come it's always treated like a Rishus Rabbim? So how come over here we say that the owner of the animal is chayiv for showing like private property? Sorry, normally a boy Rishus is potter because it's treated like Rishus Rabbim. And why over here? Sorry, just let me around. Sorry. Normally, a boy in your Rishus your potter because it's treated like it's your private property because it was originally my private property and I kept the boy for myself. It was always private. That's not a boy. No, it's treated like Rishus Yachid. So how come Shane is? Rav says Shane here is potter. If the animal eats from there, you are potter. The owner of the animal says, "Lavko kaminach." You have no right to do this. You place a stumbling block. The mekayvel peros Rishus Rabbim. You turned this ear into Rishus Rabbim and you put your fruits right next to it and you tempted my animal. My animal is animal at the end of the day. And now you want to hold me responsible. You put the stumbling block right in front of my animal. So therefore it's not fair. So there's no link necessarily between how you understand the bird. Shmuel says all the way around. But Alma Bajud really a bird and you should say why I treat it just like a Shus Rabbim. But over here, Shen, you're potter. Why? The Bishleim, when it comes to bird, the owner of the bird says that to the owner of the animal, you should be more careful. Okay, I made a hole, I should have done it, but you should have been more careful. You can name a lavadaita. Didn't notice the hole. The hole is just flat ground, but it's suddenly there's a hole there. Didn't notice. Elapatus me but there's fruits above the ground. The animal could have seen it, you could have seen it, you should have avoided your animal, kept the animal away. So therefore you're responsible. Says let us say that Machzed is this discussion we had initially, the animal with the animal Shus Rabbim and turned his head around. Do we treat it like a Shus Rabbim and therefore Shen is potter or like a Shus Yachid, that's what the food is actually Machlekes Tanaim. The Tanya we learned if you ate in the middle of the street, obviously is Shen your potter. From the side street, is Mishalem is Masha Zika. You pay the damage. In other words, you treat it like we don't care where the animal is. We look at the food, you got to pay. However, it's not common for it to eat but to walk. Sounds like he's saying, and therefore, since it's so the animals sound like a Shus Rabbim, we say, oh, you're potter because this is a little bit abnormal, so you should pay for Shan. No, so they're saying exactly the same thing. And that they're talking about the case of Tzidi Rechava on the side, and that's what they're arguing. Ella, no. The argument is where the animals are Shus Rabbim but turned around and the food is Shus Yachid. That's what they're arguing. That you still pay. Why? I don't care where the animal is. We look at the food. The Tanakama hold you pay. We look where the animal is like a Shus Rabbim. And Rabbi Yasi holds Mishalem and Mashazik. You pay for the damage because the food is in the Shus Yachid. So this is the Machlekes. We said before, but in the first version of Rabbi Shmuel, in the second version they're not, but the Chayz Machlekes tonight. So not necessarily so, because in the second version we say that everyone agrees that Yachai, because the food is just it's what's the argument here? Like Kuli Alma Machzedis, everyone holds that if the animal turns around, Ike Rav, Ike Shmuel. But how could he know the argument? The Biyah is the a very fundamental argument. The Torah says, when are you responsible for Shen? If you eat in someone else's property. So the question is, Mar Sava, what does Mizleach? One hold is the Acha V'lei B'Shus Rabbim. As long as it's not a Rishus Harabim, you have to pay. Not that it has to be a private personal thing. As long as it's not Rishus Harabim, you have to pay. Umarsav, the other one holds, ubir bizdei acher, the lavishus hamazik. Anywhere you have to pay, including a public place, you have to pay. The second opinion holds, suddenly we have an opinion that a shen, even in a public place, you have to pay. So when you put the Torah says a bir bizdei acher, and not where. But if the reshus belongs to the mazik and the nizik put his fruits down in the mazik's field, and then the mazik that want to cause the damage, animal walked over and ate the fruits, then you are potter. But in every other case, you are chayiv. It's not reshus mazik. In a way, some acharayim maybe want to say there's an argument. How do we view a reshus harabim? What does it mean a public place? A public place belongs to no one, or it belongs to everyone? Because if you learn a public that belongs to everyone, then Rishus Harabim is also considered Rishus HaMazik. And therefore we say if you're Rishus HaMazik, you are potter, then Rishus Harabim you're potter as well, because the Mazik has a Rishus there. But if you learn that Rishus Harabim belongs to no one, then when it says the Bir Bizdei Acher has to be a private person, it's only if it's a private person. Anyway, they're trying to say that's the argument, how we view it. So interesting. So now we finally have an opinion, Rabbi Yasi, who holds that Rabbi Lezer holds that a shen, even in a Rishus Harabim, they hold shen Rishus Harabim is chayiv. Is chayiv. The only time you put it Rishus HaMazik, and since Rishus Harabim does not belong to the mazik, it belongs to no one. Therefore, you are chayiv. It's not. You did not. Your animal did not eat in the Rishus HaMazik, ate somewhere else, and therefore your animal is chayiv. That's how Rabbi Yasi learns. In Rishus Harabim, you are chayiv. It's interesting. Now suddenly we brought up this new opinion we never had before. More doesn't like it. It's too out there, too much out there. My boy. I need a pasuk for that. You need a pasuk to tell me what would you have thought? Without the pasuk, would you thought that in my rishus I'm responsible that my animal does? You shouldn't put your fruits there. You don't need a pasuk for that. Hell, you're right. The ilfo of Rabbi Oishik, I know the argument is nothing to do with the side street, because they never mentioned a word about side street. This is the discussion we had before a few days ago between ilfo and Rabbi Oishik, and that is ilfo said that if one animal is following the other animal, and the animal behind eats from the fruits that are sitting at the top of the animal in front of it, it's considered like a shus yachid, and you are chay, because it's not on the ground, it's sitting on top of the animal. So that's the argument. By Rabbi Isha is that considered Rishus Harabim, considered on top of the animal and Rishus Yachid. And the same thing is Rabbi Isha. He talked about if a person had a basket behind him and it was full of fruit, and the animal jumped to get the fruit. How do we view that? Talking about further, Hakele, a dog, Vagidi, and a goat, they jumped off from the top of a roof. The Shavru is like Kalim, they jumped off and they broke in. That's common. That's what dogs do. They jump off roofs. And how high the roof? Wow. Can a kangaroo jump so high?
Don't know, mid-sized jump and then up on the roof. Then it could get down. It was like boom, boom, boom on top of the roof, driving on the rest of it.
How do they get down?
Oh, that's cool. I'm just thinking about
it. But that's jumping up. We'll soon see the difference jumping up or jumping down. A dog and a goat jumped off the top of a roof, and the shavrus a kalim jumped down and broke a bunch of kalim. You pay full damages. Why? That's what they do. They jump off roofs. You shouldn't have allowed the dog on the roof in the first place, so therefore you are totally responsible. And we're talking about here regel. This is common, and if it's a regel, then it has to be not in the Rishus Harabim, but in a Rishus of the Nisim. Flat. That's right. Exactly. How big were the houses? Remember, having a basa, the Labira palace is like only 8 square amos. That's the size of your bathroom. That's a bit of a house of Chaim Mezuzah, or whatever. Yeah. Hakelev, a dog. Shenotel charada, a dog, we already had this, a dog that took a biscuit, v'halach legodish, and attached to the biscuit was some piece of coal. V'halach legodish, and he went off to a pile of straw, let's say, or grains. Achal acharad, he ate the biscuit, which is common, so that's shen. The hidlik hagodish, and then he set fire to the godish. which is like Tzreiris. So Allah Charara Mishal and Nezek Shalom. Charara you pay full damage because that's Shen. But Allah Godish Mishal and Chati Nezek. For the Godish you pay half a Nezek. We'll see later either Tzreiris, it's your force, or because it's Mishun, it's different, it's like Ken. It was the Gemara quoting this mission. Time was saying about the whole reason they come through, they jumped off. The dog, let's say, would have fell down and broke a bunch of kalim, or the goat would have fallen down, it'll be pater. But even though, now we have an argument, we'll have a mafk in other places, let's say what you did was very negligent. But the part of what actually happened was an accident. So what do we look at do we say that whatever accident happens is a continuation of the pshi and you have to pay, or do we say no, we'll focus on the actual moment of the damage, and at that moment it was a pshi, an einus in your potter. So here it seems that the only reason why they jumped off, they fell down, potter. Al-Mukasabah, clearly holds letting the animal go on the roof was negligent. But the safe point is the end, the animal fell down and you are potter. It's a question on the opinion that says Yechai. Time we look at the price. I jumped off the roof, shows they broke Kalim, Mishalim, Nezek Shol, he paid the full damage. Not flew, they fell down between the potter. Now, this makes sense. The man number says, potter. The man number says, what are you going to say? You have to say it's a case where there was no Tchilos of Pshir. Why not? You're going to Mekarve Kalim the Gabe Kaisel. The Kalim were right beneath, right next to, adjacent to the wall, abutting the wall. When you jump, you always jump distant from the wall. You're jumping. So there was never a negligence regarding these kalim, because these, even would have jumped off, you would never have hit these kalim. The chikavti b'kvitzel, when you jump, you bypass all these kalim. There's no tchilas of pshi here at all. There's no negligence here at all. But what do you say? He'll jump over. There's no kalim where he'll jump. He fell down. Sometimes sometimes even if you fall down, you're chayiv. How is that possible? Because the wall itself was very weak and bricks were falling out. So therefore, though you should have known that from the beginning it was like a pshia for falling down, because the wall itself, it was danger, very precarious. So you want to mind you, what are you talking about? Are you telling me that that he should have known? So this question goes right back. That why? It's again, he should have known that the bricks fell down. But the point, what happened? The bricks didn't fall down. The animal fell down. So that's you're negligent for allowing the animal to go on the roof or top of a wall that is very shaky. And at the end, it just fell down. The animal fell down, not the wall. So it's and we see the din here is if it falls down, you are potter. So back to the original question that potter. So if the bricks did not fall down, and he fell down. That's you were negligent for allowing it to climb on top of a roof where there was a wall, and the wall was threatening to collapse. So that you should never have allowed the dog there. And the end was that the wall did not collapse, but the dog fell down, which is a minus. And it says that you are potter. So doesn't prove that is potter. It goes back to a question, that opinion that says the safe is chayiv. It doesn't work out. We'll see in a minute. We're talking about not that the wall is threatening to collapse. Like similar to your question, we're talking about that the wall is not protection, that the dog would fall down. It's very, very narrow, and therefore it's quite likely the dog will fall down. So it's a pshia for the dog falling down, and so if the dog fell down, there's no seifei ba'in. This was a pshia all along. The whole thing was a pshia. Yeah, so that's why. So the owner of the dog, and therefore it's a pshi all the way. That's why the dog has to pay. But the Rashi has another side. Because means it was a slopey. It was a wall that had a slope to it. So therefore, it's not possible for the animal really to there's no stability there. Yeah. So you want further? Tell them what you learned. Hakel of the dog and a goat. They jump upwards to turn that putter because it's not common. I guess a kangaroo would be different. But if they jump down on chayav, but you're only responsible if it happened something that you should have conceived that this would happen, anticipated would happen. Jumping down, yes, not going up. But Adam v'tanago, when it comes to a person, when it comes to a chicken, it doesn't make a difference which way they go. They're jumping up, they jump down, they move both ways. And by a person, we don't care if it's common or not common, because a person is always liable. You're always liable.
Didn't we have time ago on flaps its wings?
Yeah, that's the wind. Yeah, that's Sreirus. Yeah, now we're talking about the animal itself jumping up or jumping down. You should, and jumping up, it breaks things. You should know that you should have anticipated. That's what they do. They hop everywhere. Tazri wants to know, what do you have to tell me? What's the chiddush that Adam? We know Adam would la'ilam. So someone will say, Taz doesn't say that, so makes it argues that even though we say a person's chayiv and einzin, there's different degrees of einzin. But if it's a degree of einzin that's impossible for you to have to been aware of or something, then we would hold a person as potter. That's why we need to tell you that even so, jumping up. But it says elsewhere, says elsewhere, a dog or a goat that jump. They jumped. They're always potter. What does that mean? You're always potter. Or others say always chayavim, but it's the same. Makes no difference. The idea is there's no difference going up or going down by animals as well. Kagan a papa is like this. The apich meper, we're talking about where the animals did not behave. When it says here, the animals did not behave the normal way. What do you mean? Kalba bezikira. Instead of jumping down, the dog went and dogs usually don't jump down. They usually like climb down the wall. They put their fingers in the wall. They climb down the wall. But this time the dog jumped. That's not normal for a dog. Or gadya besicha, the goat, instead of jumping, like clawed its way down the wall. So they both behaved in an irrational way. So even though going up for sure they're potter, it's not normal. But even going down, because the way they went down was different than normal, they are potter. If so, why do you say potter? Okay, what happens when you do something in not a normal way? You're keren. So why you say potter altogether? Potter menezik sholul chayav v'chayaz nezik. What it means is, you're right. It doesn't mean that you're totally potter. We mean here is that you are potter for paying a full nezik, because you would think that this is normal regal. This is how an animal walks, whatever. These people jump. These animals jump. No, we're saying here that they are potter from a nezik shon, but you're right. They are keren, and therefore you will pay a half a nezik. You'll pay a half a nezik.